I'm going to stop sharing and just see what's been coming in. Amber or Jess, are there any questions that you think I should handle live?
Yes, Erin. So we do have one here. I'm going to go ahead and put the answer live on. It says, we are an APSEP who is required by the SDE to have certified staff, teachers, SLP, social workers. But we also have professional staff who are not SDE certified, but are licensed by the health department, such as psychologists and occupational therapists. Are both of these classes of staff excluded from the paid benefits or just the SDE certified staff?
That's a great question. The answer is just the SDE certified staff. So in the statute, when they talk about the population of workers who remain excluded, the exclusion applies to individuals whose positions require certification pursuant to Chapter 166 of the Connecticut General Statutes. Chapter 166 is in the the State Department of Education section of the law. So you may have individuals who are certified through Department of Public Health. They have licenses through Department of Public Health. Heck, you could have bus drivers who need a CDL, right? So they are licensed, but they are still part of the program. Only those whose positions require them to be certified by the Board of Education would be excluded. And I think you probably would qualify as a public school operator. So when you register, that's probably what you want to identify based on your description of your organization.
Thank you, Erin. The next one is, if we are not required to have certified teachers, but we choose to require that for our teachers, they are certified. Are they then not eligible for CT paid leave?
Correct. If you do whatever governance requires you to do, where you establish a new policy requiring some or all of your staff to be certified under Chapter 166, the employees that fill those positions would be excluded from participation. Unless and until you do that, everybody is in our program, even if they happen to have certification because they had it for another job or they had a different career. So if you are thinking about changing your governance to make those changes, you want to think about what that means for your current staff. But if they are required to be certified, then they do not participate.
Thanks, Erin. So on the opposite end of that question, it's if teachers are required to be certified, are now excluded, can they choose to join CT paid leave as a group?
Great question. If they are members of a collective bargaining unit and your school qualifies as a public school operator, they could collectively bargain in. If your school is not a public school operator, they cannot voluntarily join the Connecticut paid leave program. If you are a public school operator, but you don't have bargaining units, they cannot voluntarily join the public program. However, there is a thing that we call the private plan option. Private plan option is set forth in our statute, which says employers that are required to participate in the Connecticut paid leave program can comply with this obligation by offering their employees a private insurance policy or self-insured plan that conforms with CT paid leave's requirements. There are over a dozen different insurance companies that sell CT paid leave insurance policies. We have received verification from the insurance department that if a school wanted to have their non-covered staff receive paid leave protections, they could offer a private plan to those employees. If you offer that private plan only to non-covered employees, that's kind of on you. None of us are involved because they're outside of our scope. If you decide that you want to offer a private plan for your entire workforce, the ones who are required to be included, as well as the ones who are not, you would have to follow our private plan rules, which are found on our website. There's also a slide in the appendix that you will see where you have to show that it's, you've complied with the rules that we've set out that are part of the statute, and which include having the covered employees vote in favor of a private plan, and applying for us for permission, and then giving us an annual report. So there is that sort of private insurance option available for your non-covered employees.
Thank you, Erin. All right. Let's see. Regarding the quarterly salary determination, what if they are not given a choice of how their pay works, but they still have a gap in pay during the summer? Can the annual salary still be divided by 4 for a better estimate of the quarterly amount?
Great question. The statute does not allow us to do that. So this alternate way of establishing quarterly salary applies only if there's this ability to choose amongst the different options. So you have workers, you don't give them a choice. You're just like, hey, you work 10 months, we're going to pay you 10 months or whatever. We will look at their quarterly wages as earned. But it's okay, right? Because when we look at eligibility, we look at the highest earning quarter in the base period, which is defined as the first 4 of the 5 most recently completed quarters from the marking from when they file for their claim. So if they have a low quarter, say in the summer, that won't affect them because we do have this ability to look at the highest earning quarter. Similarly, when we calculate benefits, we look at the highest 2 quarters and add those together. So they shouldn't lose out. They'll be just like all of our other seasonal workers where we're able to look at their highest quarter or highest 2 quarters. The reason that we have this difference for folks who get this opportunity is really to make sure that we don't have anomalous results between the same cohort of workers.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see. This is a good one. When CT paid leave was first introduced, this individual enrolled. However, they were told that they were exempt and not permitted to participate because they were a religious organization. Is that still true?
I'm curious about what actually happened because there was no exclusion for religious organizations ever. So there may have been some miscommunication, or the question was raised differently than this synopsis indicates. Religious schools used to be excluded because they were schools. But churches and temples and other religious organizations that have employees have been participating all along. So I'm not really sure what happened there, other than potentially there was some miscommunication either at the time or in the reporting. But religious schools are absolutely covered now as a non-public elementary or secondary school.
Thank you. Do we have any sample letters that the schools can use to help them notify their employees of the law and provide them with instructions?
So we don't have letters per se, although that's something that we can talk about and maybe put up on our website. But we do have a lot of information on our website that you can use. We've got fact sheets that you can give to your employees, and we can, I'm thinking maybe when we put the QAs together, Amber and Jess, we could also just include a list of links that would be helpful for schools to use when they're communicating with their employees.
Thank you. Okay, and Jess has already dropped some information in the chat. Excellent. Thanks so much, Jess. This is more regarding on how the legislation was written, but do you know if the legislator realized that by requiring coverage for employees who are not required to be certified, the law would apply to almost most private school employees whereas not so much public school employees?
Um, it's hard to know what legislators did and did not know, but I I believe that they were aware that most non-public schools did not require certification. So I think there was an awareness there, yes.
All right. And I believe I have one item in the chat. Okay, that's Jess's link. So for those looking for some resources and guides, Jessica did drop a link in our chat, which is separate from the Q&A. So if you look at your toolbar at the bottom of your screen, you may see that you have a one message there in your chat. We don't have any other questions open at this time. We are at 11:51, so we do still have time to answer questions. We want to make sure that we do get to everybody. I'm going to circle back. We did have a question on FMLA that I do just want to address. So, Erin, I'm going to go ahead and reopen one of these. I just wanted to try to save some time. And just to clarify, DOL does offer the requirements and guidance on FMLA, but we do take some time to provide this as a part of our training. So, because we have some time, we want to address, we had a question that was saying if we have an employee that's on parental leave, which is 8 weeks of paid leave, but they're still within their 12, meaning they have another 4 left. So this individual was wondering if on October 1, they could apply for the additional 4 weeks of paid leave with the state. So the answer for that is yes. I mean, we are CT paid leave. This is the paid leave benefit, but for their FMLA, if they do have that qualifying reason to use their 4 weeks of paid leave and it's still available to them, they can use it for their qualifying reason for leave.
Actually, Amber, I want to just correct a little bit about that because they are newly qualified for these statutory entitlements as of October 1st. That employee would not have used any of their Connecticut FMLA entitlement, presumably, and would not have used, I think you're talking about federal FMLA here, and they would not have used any Connecticut paid leave benefits. So that employee has a untouched bucket of Connecticut FMLA available to them. So they could actually use up to 12 weeks of Connecticut FMLA.
That is helpful. Yeah. If they are only using federal, absolutely.
Right. So just take a little moment here. Again, this is these are FMLA questions which are technically under the DOL's jurisdiction. But we work in the business, so we're going to give you our interpretation of what this is based on my many, many years as a lawyer. Connecticut FMLA is a separate law from federal FMLA. If you have an employee who is eligible for both Connecticut FMLA and federal FMLA, and the leave reason is covered by both Connecticut FMLA and federal FMLA, the entitlements run concurrently. So they get 12 weeks and they're drawing from both buckets at the same time. If you have an employee who is eligible only for Connecticut FMLA, but not for federal FMLA, so really thinking about like a brand new employee who's been with you for 6 months, but has not made the 12 months that are required for federal FMLA, and they have a qualifying reason, they are only going to be drawing against their Connecticut FMLA bucket. They will not touch the federal FMLA. So if they become eligible for federal FMLA 6 months later, that's available to them. In this situation, they have been eligible for federal FMLA. They had not yet been eligible for Connecticut FMLA. Once they become eligible for Connecticut FMLA, that's when they start utilizing that bucket. So it's important to think about it as different. I always think about it as train tracks, right? They may operate in parallel, but sometimes one might stop or start at a different time than the other.
Thank you, Erin. I appreciate the clarification. I wanted to circle back to a question that was asked, and we do still have a few minutes. So the original question was, if we are not required to have certified teachers, but we choose to require that for their teachers, are those teachers then not eligible for CT paid leave? And the answer had been essentially yes. But to clarify, the person asking is saying requiring of certification would be something that's stated in their official governance policies and not just an operating practice. So the question now is, could they modify their policies if they wanted to prior to October 1st?
So I'm going to suggest that you talk with your lawyers about how you would do that and how you would document it and how you would enforce it, because that is going to impact the sort of your contracts with your current employees. So that's something that really is outside of our scope, and you should talk to your own legal counsel about that.
Thank you,
I will
Erin.
say that the statute just says, look to see, are you required or not?
And this one's just asking for a little clarification. If a teacher who is not scheduled to work during breaks and summers and applies for CTPL, they think that from what we had said, it sounds like they would not get Connecticut paid leave. Their understanding is that they would not be paid if they're not working, because they don't work the summer breaks.
Yes, that is correct. So a
Thank
person
you.
who, and this is true not just for teachers and other school employees, this is true for the rest of us as well. If you are not scheduled to work during a week, then you would not get benefits for that week. You're not utilizing your entitlements, so they remain available to you. But really, it's the question of kind of what is the real reason you're not working? Is it because you're not scheduled to work or because of this qualifying leave reason? So, and then they wouldn't be using their FMLA either. So if they happen to have their knee surgery in the summer, they're not drawing down on their 12 weeks of entitlement because they weren't scheduled to work. So that remains untouched and available to them if they need it later.
Thank you. Okay, if this begins on 10/1/25, is that the start date of the deduction from the employee? The reason this is being asked is because their pay period begins 9/26/25.
Yes. So our you would impose the deduction on the paycheck that is issued on or after 10/1, and the deduction applies for sort of that entire paycheck, right? So if the paycheck is issued, looks like here maybe on 10/3, even though the week began, the deduction would apply because the paycheck was issued after 10/1.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I do want to point out that we ask employees to, when they file claims with us, we say you can file anytime 30 days in advance of the start date of your claim. So if you know that you are going to have that knee surgery on October 2nd and you know you're not using any employer paid time off at all, so your benefits would start on October 2nd, you could apply to us on September 2nd. And so your employees can apply to us up to 30 days in advance. We will still process the claim because we know that they're going to take effect on October 1st. FMLA also tells employees that they should notify their employer 30 days in advance or as soon as practicable. So, getting the word out to your employees sooner rather than later is just a good practice, and it gives you the chance to actually enforce that notice requirement. We will accept claims after, of course. So if someone goes out on October 2nd, they can file their claim anytime in the next 45 days with us, and that will still be timely. If they file more than 45 days after the start of when they want benefits, we're going to ask them, why so late, folks? But if they have good cause, we will, of course, process the claim. All right.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Erin.
Again, we will share this recording. We will share the slide deck and a compilation of the Q&A. We do have webinars coming up that are employee focused. So please do let your employees know that they can look at the CT Paid Leave website. Jess, if you could put that notice in the For Everyone chat on the chat, that would be helpful. But again, all of our information about webinars, about the program are all available on our website at ctpaidleave.org. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I hope that you enjoy the afternoon and have a good remainder of your summer.